So, a really important topic, I think, thinking about how men present in society today. Like, are men being treated fairly? Do men have a fair chance? Or are they victims of what's turning into a very feminine type of society?
I'm not sure if victim is the right word, but I can definitely see how the switch in roles can affect their ability to maybe function fully in their masculinity. But I think we've got to be careful because the setbacks that they have faced, I think women have faced a lot of different types of setbacks. And I guess it's about trying to function within a society that pushes you back. And that's the challenge, really.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, it feels like at times there is an agenda to make life harder for men. And I think if you think about the government, the systems, it does favor women to a degree. And rightfully so, because women, there is a vulnerability there, with women and children that always has been. And feminism can't deny that, can't cover that. But I think with men, it can be a really, really cold and lonely world because, they're not really provided with a system to lean on. Where do they go when they're struggling? Because people don't necessarily have compassion for men. If, for instance, if you're on the train and a woman's there, someone might get up and say, oh, take a seat. But nobody will really do that for a man. Or if a woman is struggling with her luggage or she's going through a hard time, people might be like, oh, are you all right? And rightfully so. But I think if you're a man and you're in a society that doesn't allow you to be vulnerable, doesn't allow you to be weak, doesn't allow you to be emotional, then it's almost like that's hard. That's really difficult for men. And I feel like we ought to have a compassionate view of men because the governments, the systems in place don't necessarily favor them, unless, maybe you're a white, elitist, upper middle class male. If you're a minority or a black male, they're fighting against significant disadvantage. And I think, the best thing men can do in that situation is develop themselves, develop their careers, empower themselves, but don't fall into the trap of competing with women because it's a trap.
And I think that's what we see so much of in, the narrative that's perpetuated when women and men come together to debate. It's very combative. It's very rarely solution oriented. It's often an opportunity for the genders to pick each other apart. And I feel like that's so regressive.
It really is.
But then, I think about some research that I saw not long ago, and it was talking about a study that was done on trans men, and they were interviewed and they were asked about their experiences being sort of pre and post transition. And the preceding theme was that they felt that they were treated better as females and with more compassion in comparison to when they were males before the transition. And some of them actually kind of added that to the list of things that motivated them to kind of push ahead with their decision to transition. And so I think it's really interesting that being male in society can sometimes be so scary and difficult and challenging that, there are men out there who think, wow, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to survive this? And obviously that's not going to be true in all cases, but there were some specific cases where this was one thing that was identified as negative about being male.
And I think it kind of explains the mental health situation when we think about men and depression and suicide and all those kind of things. Not having someone to talk to, not feeling loved, not feeling appreciated, not feeling seen in life. You know, men just kind of looked at as this being that needs to prove themselves. They need to do this, they need to do that, they need to show up, they need to be stronger, you know. And I think for some men that might come naturally. For some men it might be easier. They may have been born in a privileged family. But for ethnic minorities or black men, the situation is very different sometimes. The foundation is so poor that, you know, they're in survival mode. They're trying to find their way. And to have that additional expectation on top of them to achieve and to be somebody, I think is extremely hard on them. And they don't have a shoulder to lean on sometimes. And that can be heartbreaking for them, I think. And there's no one to confide in. It's not like, you know, women, you know, we're sisters, we talk all the time. We're good at talking, like we chat about things, we complain, but men sometimes bottle it all in and try and be the strong one and try and look like they've got it all together. But I feel like it's slowly killing them. And they're affected by a society that has made them almost incompetent sometimes, made them redundant. And I think that's dangerous for men and dangerous for the family ultimately. And I think, you know, I have a younger brother and I feel as though, you know, if he asks me and I try and advise or I try and give him my opinion, I always say to him, the best you can do is develop yourself in your career as a man, be established so you can look after yourself and potentially support a family. And then also, you need to make sure that you cultivate a family where you can find your peace. Because if out there is really harsh for you as a man, you need to have a home you can go to where it's peaceful, it's harmonious, it's comfortable, it's warm. And that means you need to be, you know, with a partner that is healthy. And I feel like sometimes the way we cope with these negative things, the coping strategies, are so wrong. You know, one toxic relationship after another, having lots of children with different women, single parent homes, all these kind of things are almost like reactions to the inequality, to the difficulties, really toxic coping strategies. But at the end of the day, it doesn't help anyone. So I think it's really about trying to develop yourself as a man as much as you can and creating and cultivating a family where you can feel that love and that safety. You know,
well, you know, I love a data point or a research study or a piece of, kind of like a piece of research that's been done. And one thing that I came across recently was the idea that men were asked, like, you know, where they wanted to invest their time and energy as far as self-improvement was concerned. And a lot of them swayed towards like the physical fitness, transforming their diet, their eating habits, lifting more at the gym, and all of these different kind of physical transformation related goals. Whereas when it came to kind of like mental, spiritual transformation and growth, and even like to some degree, like financial, they were a little bit weaker on that side in comparison to women who, when asked the same question, their goals were very much related to, you know, going and getting therapy, working through traumas, improving their mind and their mental health as well as their physical. And I think it's just interesting, like how different we are in that sense in terms of how we view positive transformation.
And I think, you know, the question is, you know, why would men feel that they are more valuable if they are superficially more appealing? So it's almost like they feel like that's all they've got to offer, you know, muscles, being tall, whereas those things, to be honest, are really superficial and don't really mean a lot. It's really what's inside the person, the mindset, the personality, the heart. Those are the things that really need to be worked on, not just the physical. And I think that requires a transformed mind.
But I agree that there is also a lot of financial pressure directed towards males, even if they're, you know, in a 50-50 relationship or whatever it might be. There's still an expectation that the man is the provider and, you know, the man leads the way and he like brings the money home. And that financial pressure could be something that might be quite challenging to deal with, especially when you are expected to produce all the time.
I think that's definitely going to weigh on their mental health for sure. The pressure is there. That's why I said, you know, it's really good for a man to focus on developing himself, his career, his income, because the truth of the matter is, you know, that pressure is on women too, you know, and with the also the additional pressure of, you know, having children and what that does to their bodies and going through all that hormonally. So, you know, women are working, women are raising children, they're giving birth, they're getting pregnant. So women are under tremendous pressure and they're juggling a lot of balls in the air. So while I understand the pressure on men as a provider, it's important to note that the answer is not women providing and doing everything and doing that's not the answer. The answer is men being the best they can be. And when they are the best they can be, naturally they provide. Naturally they can do certain things. So it's about a bit of introspection and asking, why aren't I performing at my best? What's stopping me getting to this level?
And that was actually my next like talking point. Like, why are so many of them seemingly struggling with this when technically we're going through the same struggles? Like, we have to pay our bills as women. And so I think it's interesting trying to unpack what is the root cause of men feeling either behind or feeling like, you know, society isn't warm and loving towards them. Do they just need to grow up, or like, you know, is it more complicated than that?
I think it's more complicated, and I think it goes back to what we're saying, which is the world is not kind to men. It really isn't. Yes, women will have, you know, to provide and pay bills, and we have to do things ourselves in the modern day, and that's great. You know, men and women should have equality, but we are not the same. And I think that's been lost in translation. And I think men need to find out who they are authentically so that they can perform as men. And while the society is harsh, while the systems may not always favor them, I think if they are authentically the man they ought to be and focus on developing their full potential, they will naturally start to cope with those things in a positive way. And I think it's worth saying that when there's a war, like we had the war in Ukraine recently, what was the first thing they said? They were like, all the men need to go and fight. Women and children need to leave or need to go to the shelter. But all the men need to go and fight. So I think fundamentally, we need to get back to the understanding of what the roles are of men and women and what women bring and what men bring. And while there is equality, which I champion, you know, we're not saying go back to dark ages, but what we're saying is while we are equal, we are not the same. Therefore, we need to authentically be able to be the best woman we can be, and men need to be the best men they can be without competing with women or without being less than, you know?
Yeah, and I think so much can be achieved by just collaborating instead of competing.
Yeah.
Because each gender brings so much to the table. And
when they are at their best, when they are working towards improvement.
So, how can men feel more fulfilled, more successful, and more supported by working on themselves and striving every day to bring their best to the table? Not asking what someone else is bringing to the table, just bringing their
Focusing on
best.
them, being the best,
focusing on
doing the
themselves,
best.
investing in themselves
Exactly.
mentally, financially, physically, spiritually, in all of the ways that are important to human development.
Yeah.
And then being in a position to attract a partner who
healthy
is also on that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So they can cultivate a home that is harmonious and peaceful and gives them that comfort that they are lacking perhaps in the big wide world.
I'm glad we had that chat.